everybody. I'm Nicole.
I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Sarah, and together we're the co-founders of Whale Tales, a living library of cetacean stories.
Today, we are very excited to have a special guest joining us for the pod.
So sit back and enjoy as we dive right in.
Doodaloo. Hello, everyone. Happy May.
Hooray!
Such a lovely month. And we are very excited to have a lovely guest joining us today. For the pod, we have Joëlle De Weerdt from Association ELI-S to talk to us about humpback whales.
Hooray! And now we have Joëlle here, who's here to talk to us about humpbacks and all sorts of exciting things. So welcome, Joëlle. Thank you for being here. And why don't we start with a little bit of an introduction about you and who you are?
Hi, thank you so much for inviting me today. I'm actually a marine mammal biologist, currently finishing my PhD in humpback whale ecology. And I'm also the founder of the Cetacean Conservation Project of Nicaragua that I'm running with my own nonprofit organization called Association ELI-S. So my full name, just in case you wonder how you pronounce it, is Joëlle De Weerdt. So it's a Flemish last name, so it's a bit hard to say. So I'm from Belgium. And I got my master's degrees at the University of Brussels, the VUB. And the project that I'm running with Association ELI-S, it consists of raising awareness amongst local communities, also establish conservation actions for the conservation of whales and dolphins, of course. And those actions include regular beach cleanups and also help national institutions in developing conservation measures, and of course monitor humpback whale populations, but also dolphins.
Cool. That sounds awesome and like a lot. It's one of those things, like, again, we'll get in more into it because I don't know anything about this population, but it's one of those ones of like, I'm sure that the local people have known about humpbacks and all of this stuff for so long, but like, have they been telling the world about them, or like, is this kind of one of the first things of getting that information into the humpback databases and stuff? Like, how has that been going?
Yeah, so the project I've created is a pioneer project. So no one before me started a long-term monitoring of whales and dolphins in the area. So the people knew that there were whales, but they didn't really know like if there was a lot, or they were not really paying attention to it. So it's not like it was not really an important animal. They're more focused on turtles, because you have olive reedy turtles coming and doing mass nesting in the south of Nicaragua. So whales was not really like something that they thought no one really cared about it. But now, since I've been working there for the last 8 years, like people start talking about whales, even in the little town where I'm working. The local village wants to have like a whale statue, so it's getting into the village, and people are having more and more interest. And also they noticed, well, tourists also like whales, so for the tourism industry, it's they start thinking like, okay, maybe there is something to do with whale watching. So there I'm also giving, of course, some information sessions to fishermen and other tourist operators to operate in a sustainable and safe way whale watching activities. I've been also helping with developing the first regulation, the first law to protect whales with the first whale watching regulations. That was in 2021. So those are the kind of actions that I'm doing there in Nicaragua, in Central America.
Wow. That's so many things.
Yeah.
So, and is this all through your organization, ELI-S? Is that how you say it?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I was unfortunate to not get a PhD scholarship. So I kind of decided to do my research, even if I didn't get the funding. So I started just doing all this from scratch and by myself. So looking for grants and selling stuff and looking for donations. And so I'm a self-made researcher.
Oh, wow. So
Amazing.
that's what your association has been set up for, to help you do this research?
Yes.
Wow. Amazing. Can you tell us about your research? Maybe like was your master's on cetaceans as well? Maybe start there, kind of how you got to Nicaragua and humpbacks and...
Yeah, no, I always wanted to study whales and dolphins. That was like very clear to me since I was a child. However, I entered into the biology department and I started my bachelor degree, and then I did my master degree, and I got excited by so many different things, you know. So I did my master degree on wood biology of mangroves, you know, it has nothing to do with whales. So at the end of my master degree, I was like, wait, hold on. I really wanted to study whales, and I just ended up studying like wood structure, you know. I was like, no, I just want to reconnect with this initial goal and my childhood dream, and that's why I started volunteering in different parts of the world. So I went to Madagascar and well other places, and that's how it actually started. Yeah.
Wow,
But then,
that's
yeah.
cool.
But I didn't do my master degree on whales. Yeah.
That's a fun like recentering of what you really wanted to study.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
Right?
you
Yeah, I
PhD,
know.
which,
I know.
like, especially for a PhD, like it's such a commitment. So I'm so like great that you're able to do it on something that you're so passionate about. So do you want to talk a little bit about the research that you're doing for your PhD, and maybe through that we can talk a little bit in particular about the humpback populations that you're working with?
Sure. So the study I'm doing in Nicaragua is actually specifically on an endangered population. So there is a little knowledge about humpback whales in Central America, and you told me too. We don't know much about them. You know.
Yeah. We don't know anything. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had the same curiosity. I was like, what's happening there? And so it turned out that the population was about 500 to 600 individuals. So it's very, very small. And there are different threats related to that population, but we didn't have like any idea of like, no, we didn't have any baseline information about whales, like how many whales are there, you know, coming every year, do they return every year, like how do you have mother calf pairs, are they actually breeding, reproducing there, that's what they're supposed to do, but this basic information was just unavailable. So the first part of my thesis is about like habitat use patterns of different group types and understand how many animals are coming. And well, it turns out that the density of course is low. It was what I expected because the population size is so small. However, we did in a collaboration with other Central American countries, we did a new evaluation of the population size. So they included southern Mexico because they discovered that Central America whales were also actually going to southern Mexico, and we found that there were about 1,400 individuals. So there is a population increase, which is good news. However, the population increase is very low compared to other North Pacific populations. Like in Hawaii, it's like 6-8% a year. In Australia it's 10%, so that's not in the South Pacific, but so there are other populations doing much better than this one, and it's not really clear why this population is not increasing as much as the others. So I still didn't sort out that part because I was focused on doing more basic research, right? So the second part of my PhD was about looking at migratory destinations. So where are the whales going that we observe in Nicaragua? And there is something that I discovered during those 8 years going into the field, is that whales were observed also in July, August, September, October. So you have to know my population is actually breeding between January and April. So, you know that humpback whales are migratory, so they're coming for a certain period and then they leave to their feeding ground. So, July, August is very far from their actual breeding season. So, it called really my attention. I was like, that's weird. I know there is a population going up to the southern part of Costa Rica. Some observations were seen in northern Costa Rica. So it's like maybe we have this population that's breeding all over from Costa Rica to Peru, Chile. So I suspected that. However, I didn't have any evidence that they were coming from Antarctica feeding grounds, right? but thanks to the citizen science program that I've set up, so I've been collecting data from fishermen and tour operators or anyone that had a nice view from their house on the ocean. They were telling me when they were seeing whales, and I've been writing this down in this Excel sheet. That's how I know that they see whales between July and October.
Mm-hmm.
But I got one tail, so you know that humpback whales can be identified based on the ventral part of the fluke, with the colors and the shape and everything. So thanks to that, we can build up catalogs, and I have uploaded this one tail that I had on Happy Whale, which is an online platform using AI to identify where the whales are coming from. And I remember, this is a little anecdote, because I was saying that to my main supervisor. I was like, oh, I'm excited. I'm pretty sure I have whales from Antarctica. That's the northernmost record of whales from Antarctica. That's super exciting. And he was like, Joëlle, you have no proof, that they're coming from there. I'm like, yeah, but there would be a lot of whales really being lost between July and October, Anyway, so that fluke, after the conversation with my supervisor, 1 week later, I got a notification, and they found a recapture of this whale in Antarctica. So it was
wow.
Yeah, so I was super excited, and I was like, I was right. No, I'm kidding.
That's awesome.
I was excited to share this with my supervisor, and that was one publication I made, the northernmost record of humpback whales from Antarctica. However, I so since then I started doing also surveys between July and September, because October there's a lot of bad weather, so I couldn't really do surveys in October. And I found, I collected some more flukes, and I can tell you that there are more recaptures with Antarctica. So it's really, really good news, that that's something I would like to do in the future. And then another very exciting thing, so that's then the third part of my PhD, is that I observed something very unique, because you know that humpback whales are migrating between feeding grounds and breeding grounds and are actually fasting. Well, that's what they're supposed to do, and that's what we expect, right? So they're eating in the feeding grounds, creating their energetical budgets, to actually travel to the breeding areas, do what they have to do, and go back. But in Nicaragua, out of the sudden, I saw this whale feeding. And I was like, why is this whale feeding? This is super awkward. I'm like, this whale doesn't know that you're supposed to be fasting. This is not what you're supposed to do. So I was very excited. And I actually noticed with direct evidences, so through lunch feeding, that the whales were feeding, but also indirectly, like dolphins feeding and then birds feeding, but also I saw whale defecation. I had a lot of indirect evidences that whales were feeding in the area. And so it appears that they're doing it often during the season, but also annually. So it's not like a opportunistic or a one-time thing. Whales are actually feeding there on a regular basis. So that caught my attention. So I wrote another paper about feeding behaviors of whales in breeding areas, which was the third record in the world after Australia and South Africa. So I was really excited about that. And in the last part of my PhD, I'm looking at how the increase in local productivity is affecting humpback whales in their feeding behaviors. So I'm comparing the two populations that I identified locally. One is feeding, the other one is not feeding, and I'm looking into productivity and see how it is affecting encounter rates in Nicaragua. So it's pretty exciting and pretty unique. So I tried to summarize my PhD.
That's really, really cool. And again, we were talking about this yesterday. And we're like, we don't know what are the whales doing in Nicaragua. And I guess the answer is everything.
Yeah,
just doing it all.
Imagine, I'm super lucky. I have whales almost year round, and they're doing a lot of fun stuff.
So the whales that you get in January and stuff, are those are Northern Pacific ones that go back up to Costa Rica, or do they go further north, or?
Yeah, so the ones between January and April are going back to the feeding areas along the US West Coast and up to British Columbia in Canada. That's the northernmost record, yeah.
Oh, that's random and cool.
Delightful. Are you doing boat-based and land-based studies, or just one or the other?
No, I just do boat-based surveys.
That's so cool. I'm just like, I need to like sit in this new knowledge. I don't know what to do with this information. It's so weird.
Yeah. So are the whales that are there and are feeding there, are they're there at like a certain time of year only that you've seen feeding?
So yeah, I've seen more feeding between February and April. So there is a
Okay.
season. Well, actually, there is an oceanographic feature that's coming in, that's moving toward the coast and going offshore, and so it's seasonally displacing itself in the ocean.
Okay.
And this is like a nutrient rich feature.
Mm.
And between February and April, it's actually in the coastal area of southern Nicaragua and northern Costa Rica, and that's probably promoting, well, the productivity, and so the food resource is abundant there, and humpback whales are taking advantage of it.
Right. And do we know what the food type is? Is it?
I've seen them eating on sardines, small sardine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's how I thought that whales were only feeding on krill, but then I discovered, I was like, they're also
Yeah.
feeding on small fish.
Small fish, yeah. Yeah, I mean, we get that here with gray whales, for
Mhm.
sure, are eating all kinds of stuff, yeah. Have you been able to capture any, like, re-sightings of individuals over certain years, or how are you able to study returning individuals that are coming back to your study area?
Yeah, so this is something I would like to do still, because I haven't done it in detail, like the return rate and the site fidelity. But I can tell you that there are whales that I know they're coming over and over again every year. So I have a pretty high level of site fidelity. I mean, it's not based on actual data, but personal observation, right? And I suspect even that there is a group of individuals that are kind of specialized in taking advantage of this productivity. Not all the whales are interested in feeding. They're not all doing it. And according to what I've seen, it's mainly males doing it.
That is interesting. Huh.
Yeah.
So it's not all the individuals are feeding, it's sort of opportunistic feeding maybe, rather than like everybody's there to feed.
Yeah, no, I mean, they're going there definitely for reproduction, right? That's the number one activity. But I think like some of them are like kind of, okay, well, maybe I can stick longer, if I can take advantage of the feeding opportunities, because remember that they have an energetical budget. So if they're feeding in the feeding areas, perhaps they don't have enough energy to stay as long as they want. So if they have that supplemental feeding, then that gives them maybe more opportunity to stick around and have more reproduction opportunities. That's my hypothesis, but
Yeah. And
I mean,
the individuals that you do see feeding, they're coming from where?
the U.S. West Coast.
Okay, West Coast, yeah.
That's so weird.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there a catalog of individuals that is being built of the animals that you're seeing in Nicaragua?
Of course, yeah. I have two catalogs. One for the whales from the U.S. West Coast, and then the other one from Antarctica. So it's quite a lot of work. And until now, I haven't seen any whales from the northern Pacific in the South Pacific season, and the other way around. So I haven't seen any mix-up of both populations. That's another question that I have. Like, okay, are they exchanging somehow? Is there happening something between those two populations temporally? They're not really occurring together. However, you could have a potential temporal overlap in case some animals are coming early in Central America, like October, November, and that other whales from Antarctica stick around longer, October, November. So there is like in this moment of the year, there could be a potential exchange. So that's why I started this acoustical project. So I've been recording the songs of both populations, and I'm looking at the structure of the song. So if there are any phrases that are common to both songs, to see if there is population connectivity, which would mean that just that only the humpback whale males sing. So that would mean that two males were spatially close to each other, right? Doesn't mean that there is actual reproduction occurring, But however, it shows that there is like a proximity between the two populations somehow.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question of like, I guess it's a longer term thing about songs changing, of like if we can track northern song stuff getting into southern song stuff, or
Yeah, like cultural overlap rather than reproductive
Exactly.
overlap, essentially.
It's like an ocean of opportunities.
Exactly. Exactly. How far off the coast do you tend to have to go to see humpbacks in this area?
Yeah, I remain in the coastal area. Like I go up to 6 or max 10 kilometers from the coast,
Oh, so very close. Yeah.
like offshore. But I can go, along the coast, south or north, a little bit
Yeah.
further. I don't navigate that much. I go on. I do a trip per day, and I always come back on shore.
Right. Oh, so yeah, sure. Okay. And you were saying that the local people have, because of the work you're doing there and like educating and informing about, whales that they've obviously seen off the coast, but haven't, if there hasn't been much like economic or like food benefit of the whales, there's not like a traditional understanding of the whales. But what's sort of been the response of people learning more about these animals that go past where they live?
Well, I think like at first, people were like, why is this girl always running in the harbor and trying to see whales? They were like, what is she doing all the time? And, they see me all the time going on the boat and they're like, what is she still studying? Like, they don't get it. Like, what more do you want to know about them? So it's just like the fishermen, at least they know me because they saw me so many times going on the boat. And it called their attention. So that's why I organize also these information sessions so they know a little bit what I'm doing. I'm trying to give them some basic stuff, like the photo ID and the catalogs and, what I'm trying to do. In the local communities, well, of course, the people, just by living in the village, people are like, oh, this is the whale girl. They know I'm dedicated to the whale research stuff. So there is interest. Well, of course, you have like everywhere and people that are interested and people that are absolutely not interested. You cannot raise awareness to 100% of the people. That's impossible, even though I would like to raise awareness to everyone, but it's not possible. Yeah, I think, like, for example, I within the education, I was actually giving classes. Well, I at the start I was giving classes to kids in collaboration with a local school, but then I had a local teacher, because I had this vision that, okay, it's better if it's a local person explaining to local kids, in their language. I'm too scientific. My vocabulary is totally biased to science. So I was like, maybe someone that can explain it in a more simple way. So that was pretty successful. I've been doing that for years. And last year I actually saw one of these kids, because I also organized boat excursions, right, to get the kids on the boat and see the whales. And there was one, it was like, I remember this excursion, I saw the whales, that was super cool. It really impacted the kid. So I think it's really hard to answer this question, like how much did I impact the village, in what I've done. There's no number, I can't really say.
No, of course.
I changed the perception of 10 people. I don't know. But I do see changes, also the people that are talking to me, asking me about the whales. Like I said, like the mayor's office having some initiatives to include the whales. Well, I've been insisting, like I've been talking about it for years. I was like, maybe we should have a statue of a whale, So I've been saying this, and apparently they're gonna do it. So I feel like, well, I mean, I gave this idea, so somehow I guess I influenced that, right?
Do you have, I guess, is there traditional knowledge of the whales? I guess if they're all there all year round, is it more of just like the whales are always here, kind of?
Yeah, the knowledge, well, honestly, like fishermen really didn't pay attention to whales. They were just like, they're whales. I mean, they really didn't really care about it, to be honest. Like I've been talking about it with fishermen, of course, and hey, because I was wondering, of course, are those feeding events recent, or are the whales doing this forever, but I don't know, because I started 8 years ago and no one has ever seen that. There was one report in 2003 of a feeding whale in Costa Rica. So probably it's a pattern that has been going on for a long time. But I mean, I have no evidence to say. So I don't know if it's like, culturally inherited, if they learned it from another whale, like saying, hey, you can, or saying, like just communicating to another whale, like you can feed there. And so I don't know the whole process behind it. It's pretty exciting and mysterious because I have no idea how it works. But according to fishermen, well, they say that they have been feeding for a long time. However, the problem is that when fishermen, they know there are sardines or there is fish, and if they see a whale like swimming next to it, for them is their feeding. And as a biologist, we are very conservative in saying yes, it's feeding or not. We need really evidence. I always say it's not because I have I'm walking next to a garbage bin that I will throw garbage in it. Like it's not an obvious link, right?
They could be swimming near sardines and not eating them. Yeah.
Or even easier, it's not because I'm walking next to a restaurant that I will go inside to eat.
Yeah, exactly. Now I'm just thinking though about like a whale accidentally finding food there and then like being like telling everybody about it. Okay, did you look at this?
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because this pattern is showing that whales are not like, if I can use this strong statement, stupidly like migrating from point A to point B, and they're actually assessing, the environmental conditions, and they do, analyze, okay, there is food I eat, they're not just, just like from point A to B. If there is other options, they're flexible, they're adapting, they're taking advantage. So I think it changes a little bit the perception. I see you thinking, like, that's interesting, like kind of weird also because it's not our concept of the migration, right?
Well, we always think of migration as a very like static, preformed thing, but like these whales are making that decision every year and every step along the way.
Yeah, and we do see that now up here with whales that are staying up here all winter or longer into the winter. So things are changing. But also, like, are they changing? Like, they're changing up here with climate change, but is that a thing that has been in Nicaragua the entire time? Or is it a climate change thing or a food thing? Or I don't know.
Is it just climate change or is it whales rebounding after whaling? All kinds of stuff.
Yeah. So many questions.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. Definitely. But I do think it's complementary to what they're eating in the feeding area. So imagine climate change is changing the productivity of your system. So whales are having less opportunity to feed in feeding areas. If these whales know that there is like some food in Nicaragua, they could potentially rely on that and say, okay, I have less food, but I will, never mind, I will start my migration and I know I will have my food, complementary food source there, But I don't know if that's a way that it's functioning, right? I'm just making it up right now, but
it's definitely, as the more you learn, the more questions you know to ask. I had a question that wasn't really to do with humpback populations. So, Linz, if you had any more questions about.
No, I think that was it. It was just kind of like if there's any more other research or information about what you're doing, if you want to share before we move on.
No, I think I said the core
cool
ideas.
Yeah.
I was wondering, because you're the first person I've spoken to. I've obviously like heard of people self-funding their PhDs, but you're the first person I've spoken to. So I was wondering if you had any advice for anybody else that was thinking about basically self-funding their PhD.
It's a tough road. You can take this road, but it's definitely a bumpy road to take. Knowing that a PhD is already very very tough, to do, because you have all these ups and downs, and well, the people that are doing a PhD know. The ones that are not doing it, they probably don't know, but now you know. So I would not recommend it like straight away. If you can have funding, like that would be your number one choice. Like really, I did it because I had this vision. I really wanted to do my research. It was crystal clear. I wanted to do that. So I had this determination, and I have a high level of perseverance. I don't know how you pronounce it in English properly, but I have perseverance. Thank you. So I have this high level of perseverance, and which is like more like higher than a normal person, I think. So if you're in this kind of mindset, go for it. But if you're like, whenever you have difficulties and you give up more easily, then I would not recommend to do it, because it's like I just mentioned you the basic programs that I'm doing, and you said, oh, that's a lot, and that's just the outline, and there's so much more behind and in addition, like I'm doing research, but also raising awareness with local communities, and also my social media and so on. And that's why I'm also here today, so I can talk about my project and raise awareness about whales in Nicaragua, Central America, and so this is a very, very important part of what I'm doing, because I do believe that people have the power to participate to whale conservation, and they need to know that, because sometimes we feel like, oh, this whale swimming in the ocean, what's the connection with me, like. So I really want to reconnect the people a bit with the ocean, with the whales, and understanding that we're a part of a bigger thing. We're all united in one system. So that's a big goal I have also, apart from the science. That's very, very exciting.
Before we continue with the rest of the episode, we want to take a moment to tell you about how you can support our podcast and everything we do at Whale Tales.
You can become a patron at patreon.com/whaletales. You can join for $1 a month at the porpoise level, $5 a month at the dolphin level, or $10 a month at the whale level.
And each level comes with a variety of perks, including polls, thank you postcards, access to extended interviews, and extra stories that our guests share with us. At the whale level, you get to produce your own Fun Flipper Fact segment, and we have 2 Patreon-specific podcasts. For our dolphin and whale level patrons, we have our journal club, and on alternating months for whale level patrons, we have Whale Tales Watches, where we watch a thing, sometimes read a thing, that is marine biology adjacent in pop culture, and then we talk about it. And this month, oh boy!
Speaking of marine biology adjacent,
we watched the Disney flop Atlantis, and you know what? It flopped for a reason. But we have some things to say, so hopefully you will join us on Patreon for that.
And thank you so much to all of our patrons for letting us do these ridiculous things and also just supporting us in general. You are amazing.
Agreed. Thank you so much. If you aren't able to support us financially, there's still other things you can do to help us out. You can always leave a rating or a review on your podcast platform of choice. This will help other people find the podcast, and also you can just tell your cetacean and science podcast friends all about the podcast and everything we do at Whale Tales so that they can listen along too.
You can also follow us on social media at whaletales_org and send us all of your feedback so that we can keep making the podcast even better.
Okay, so now we move on. Sadly, Nicole is not here to sing for us, but move on to a Fun Flipper fact. A little fun fact about any cetacean that you could think of. Don't worry. Everybody gets nervous around this part for some reason.
So we were talking like offline, let's say, and you gave me some inspiration. So I think it's funny because, like scientifically, we're dividing cetaceans in mysticetes and odontocetes. So baleen whales, and then toothed whales, and then toothed dolphins. Like it's a hard one to say. It's a whale, it's a dolphin. It's a bit complicated. So, for example, you have the sperm whale. Well, it's a whale, but it's not a baleen whale. It's like a toothed whale, like. And actually, people, when they say whale, they refer, in English, at least they refer to bigger animals, right? Whale is like a certain size. Usually that's why we define a whale. You have a beluga whale, killer whale, everything is a whale. So most of the things are whales. So is a beluga whale a whale or a dolphin? It's a very tough question. So that's why I prefer the scientific classification, because then it's pretty clear. But when people say, hi, which whale species are you studying? And I'm like, okay, when I say whale, I talk about baleen whales, like it's pretty clear when I say whale. I never refer to a killer whale, even if in the name it's a killer whale. So it's pretty funny in this sense. It's funny because like scientists have their own like definitions, and then you have the people's definition, and sometimes it can create awkward situations if you mention whale and you mention something else, and they think of a killer whale, and you actually talk about baleen whale, like whale things.
Yeah.
It's a good a good way to think about it. So if people are listening to this, maybe they should reconsider their conversations based on this.
Yeah, it's so complicated with scientific names and all the different languages and all the different common names all over the world for everything, and it's just like, how do we decide? And it, like, for regular people, aside from learning things and understanding the importance of whales, like, does it matter in a day-to-day basis? Like, and that's just not just cetaceans, that's everything. Like, does it matter like what this animal is classified as? It's there, and that's the good part. Like, yeah, it's one of those interesting conversations.
People get hung up on taxonomy, but as long as you can figure out a way to be clear that, you know, you're both speaking about the same thing, it doesn't really matter.
I agree. That's true.
Yeah. So, yeah, good thoughts. Okay, now let's get to the good stuff, which is stories. Whale tales. Do you have a favorite or really special encounter of a cetacean that you would like to share?
That was also very, very hard, you know? I was like, of all encounters, which one shall I share, you know? You have those unexpected, you know, what I like when I go on the boat is I never know what is going to happen, because it's still a mystery, you know? You don't know which species you will encounter. You don't know if the whales will do something special. Most of the time they're surfacing and just doing their things. Like, you know, I can calculate the time that they're staying under the water, diving down, but then other times they have like very surprising behaviors. Like, I remembered that one time that there was this mother calf bear that we were trying to photo ID, and it was a bit rough, you know, to navigate. So it was hard to get at a good distance for photo ID, and then at a certain point, I don't know, I think the calf got like very curious about the boat. So they were like, why are they like kind of trying to follow us, you know? So it came closer to us. And I think the mother, like, it took a few seconds that she understood that the calf was coming to us. She was avoiding us didn't take long. It's like a short sighting, but still. And she came to the boat really, really quickly. She turned around like 360 degree, took the calf with her, and she just left. And it was so fast, and it was like, you know, very close to the boat also. And I was like, okay, that was like, my heart started beating a little bit faster.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, guys, let's leave them. I think like the mother clearly, but it was also a very emotional moment, because it just showed that, okay, it's the mother taking care of her calf, and she really wanted to protect it, and you could feel like this protective energy, you know, like it was. We were like, wow, we were witnessing something very special at that moment. I've never seen a mother doing this, so it was pretty special. Of course, another moment when I saw this feeding of this humpback whale, and I saw this sardine like coming out of the mouth, and I did a picture, and I yelled. I was like, "This is a publication!" I was very excited. Yeah, you know, and so on and so on. And then I have also animals, of course, that I'm naming. You can definitely know my taste for the kind of movies that I'm looking at. So I have one. It's called Gollum. I don't know how you pronounce it, but really, yeah. So this is one of my favorite whales. It's a male. I discovered it because it was suddenly singing, and I heard it through the boat. You know, then you're really close to the whale, and you know it's a male because it's singing. And Gollum is a whale I've been seeing every single year. So each time I see him, I'm very excited, because you know it feels like I know this whale, like we're friends.
Yeah.
You know? I made up in my mind. I don't think that Gollum,
of course, cares
about me, but I do think that some whales are recognizing the boat. I think they're like easily fluking. They know they fluke and they leave, and they're like, okay, then I know this boat will leave. Whenever I have the idea, it feels like this. There is a whale I call the Moana. It's also it's also a male. And this male is really cool. It's like fluking and then it's like leaving. Like, great. And one is always very easygoing for the photo ID. Yeah, I have a lot of little moments like this. Like, it's really hard to pick one that's out of the, like, I would almost say that every moment is unique, but yeah, we belong to talk about it.
Before we wrap up, did you have any calls to action or small things or big things that our listeners can do to help support whales and the world that whales live in?
That is a question I've been asking myself for years. What can people do? What can you do? You're here, like, far from the ocean. What can you do for the whales? Well, there are a lot of small things you can do. First of all, support organizations or projects like mine or many others in other regions, like following on Instagram and social media, and support by becoming a donor or buying stuff. That's something you can do by directly supporting an organization. Other than that, you can talk about it with your friends. If you listen to this podcast and you're like, oh, that's really interesting, talk about it with all the people you can find. And people might be surprised how interested the people are about it. So they really want to know more about whales, and most of the time they're so busy with their everyday life. People think of, okay, I need to drop the kids at the school and I need to get food and work, and they have their own thing. They're not thinking about whales at all. However, I always say that trying to be mindful in your choices is where you actually already starting to care about the environment. So for example, I would use a reusable bottle for my water, right? But imagine I'm outside. Unfortunately, I don't have my bottle and I need to buy a plastic bottle. Okay, I'm aware that I will buy a plastic bottle, so it's like not really good for the environment. However, I will make sure that I will not throw this bottle in the environment, that is getting recycled. That's a mindful way to go around with some of your daily actions. Another example, you are going on holiday, you have to take a flight. For example, you take a flight, take a CO2 compensation. It's not ideal to take the flight. You will have an environmental impact, but then at least consider, what can I do to improve or at least compensate for the impact I will have on the world. So this is what I mean with try to have mindful choices. Do your best with small actions. And sometimes I had a period of my life, it was like, oh my God, I'm stressed because I open my fridge, there's plastic everywhere. I'm like, I got really depressed about it. But at a certain point, you can only do, accessible things. What can you do at this point? You cannot like stop all the plastic production of all the industries, but you can choose, for example, for, I don't know, buying fruit that's not wrapped in plastic, for example. Those are little actions that you can do on a daily basis. It's good for the environment, it's good for the ocean, it's good for everything, for your health also. So whatever you do for the environment actually comes back to you, in a positive way. Less pollution in the ocean is a healthier environment for you. So this is like something that people need to realize. For example, in Nicaragua, I mentioned to the people, whatever you throw in the environment goes into the ocean. And you see they eat fish. The fish eats the microplastics, and in the end, it goes just straight back to you. So whatever you do to the environment comes back to you. You pay the price at a certain point. So that's the biggest advice I can give to the people. Like, don't stress you out either to say you're a bad citizen, because whatever, there are things that you will not do perfectly, and that's totally fine, but try to do your best, and make mindful choices. So that would be my main advice for the people, to take action.
Yeah, that's a really good one, because I get stressed out about it at times too, and you're just like, there's only so much I can do, and like, if you stop and like think about all the things that you're doing that you're not even thinking about, there's so many things I've been doing for so long that I'm like, oh yeah, look at that, good job me. Because you're just, you can't not buy plastic. That's the way that it is. So
yeah, doing things I think mindfully and being aware of the consequences and trying to mitigate those consequences. Thank you so much, Joëlle.
Yes, this has been fantastic. Can you tell everybody where to find you on the internet? Yeah, not like...
Well, I'm located in Brussels right now. No, I'm kidding. So yeah, so you can follow the project on Instagram, on Facebook, mainly. So you can follow the project. It's Association ELI-S, so ELIS. And or you can follow me because I'm having two accounts where I'm actually talking about the project, what we achieve, and then the other project, my account, is more about what it's like to be a woman in science and doing PhD and all the struggles behind it, or the journey. So those are two different concepts. So you can, and that's Joëlle, so JOELLE.DW. Yeah, I shortened my last name to make it easier. So Joëlle.DW for my account. And then I have my website, elis.com, where people can surf and try to get to know more about the project by reading.
Great. Yeah, we'll put those in the show notes. That wraps us up. Unless, do you have anything else?
No, I really would like to thank you. I was a bit nervous and excited to share today, and the time went by very quickly. So it was really, really nice to share with you, and thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Joëlle. This was amazing. It was a really great conversation.
That brings us to the end of today's episode. So thank you all so much for joining us. We would love to hear your thoughts on this or any episode of the pod. So please visit our website, whale-tales.org, where you can find links to all of our social media handles, the ones I know about and the ones that I don't, so that you can drop us a line. Don't worry, even the ones that I don't know about, Lindsay still shares. Thank you, Lindsay.
You can also head to our website to subscribe to the podcast. You can learn about supporting us and becoming a patron, and read almost 1,400 whale, dolphin, and porpoise stories.
That's whale-tales.org. Tales like the story, not tales like the animal.
And if you've seen a cetacean, we would love to add your story to our library. You can click the share link on the website, you can contact us on social media, or you can always email us a voice memo and tell us all about your incredible cetacean encounter.
Finally, we want to acknowledge that we recorded today's episode on the unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples and the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations, as well as the homelands of the Tsawwassen First Nation.
Thanks, everybody, and we hope you have a whaley great day.